Hello, everyone. Welcome back for another episode of Owning Your Sexual Self. I am excited to have on a guest today. This episode is going to be for the male listeners, or if you're a female listener and you want to send this over to your partner, this could be helpful and supportive for them. Today, we're helping men understand the physical, mental, and emotional aspects of becoming the lovers that they believe that they can be and that they want to be. And so I have a guest on with us today, Jim Benson, who has spent over 2 decades helping men become more confident, connected, and more skillful in their love giving. And his flagship online program, Multi Orgasmic Lover, has reached more than 10,000 men worldwide and is widely regarded for its physical, body based approach that helps men experience greater stamina and more pleasure. I'm really excited to have Jim on the show. Fun fact, he is a certified sky dancing tantra teacher that I cannot wait to hear more about what that is. Also a trained counselor and a longtime professional certified coach with the International Coach Federation. So really excited to have Jim onto the show today. Thank you so much for listening, and let's get this episode going. All right. Hi there, Jim. Thank you so much for coming onto the show today. It's really a pleasure to have you.
I'm glad to be here, Rachel. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, pleasure to have you. We get to talk about pleasure today for the men that are listening to the show, or again, partners that are listening that want their men to experience more pleasure. But before we get into that, I'm curious. I'd love to just ask everybody that comes on the show just their origin story, if you will, because I think
Mhm.
that most of us, some of us grew up thinking, okay, when I grow up, I'm gonna be talking about sex for as an adult. But for most of us, this path found us in a way. So, how did you stumble upon this work?
Yeah, I mean, I did not pop out of the womb being a sexpert, that's for sure. Um, I was raised in a very strict religious and military household in the deep south of the U.S. So,
Double whammy
uh,
there.
yeah, I don't know, I lost track of how many whammies there were, but, um, and I was a late bloomer. I didn't even kiss a girl till I was in my 20s, probably. So, Uh, at some point when I was going to get married in my late 20s, my fiance left me because I wasn't really bringing it in the bedroom.
Hmm.
So I thought, after she moved out, I thought, I've got to figure this sex thing out because
Hmm.
I'm really not good at it.
Hmm.
So I did workshops, I studied individually with teachers who came and trained me, and I started studying Tantra. I got Margot Anand's book, The Art of Sexual Ecstasy,
Hmm.
and started to do practices in that book with partners. And then I did a love and ecstasy training with the Sky Dancing Tantra and Margot, and finally took a teacher training with her to
Nice.
become a Tantra teacher. And then a year later, Margot and I started teaching together. So we led groups in Europe and in the US. And in fact, Margot and I still work together. And I'm going to Bali next month to
Mm.
lead a teacher training with her. So we're training 60 teachers in Skydancing Tantra in Bali together.
Amazing. Amazing. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, just like one thing led to another, it sounded
Yeah.
like, and you just really, yeah, found your calling, found your home in this line of work, which I think is such a gift, and it makes it a lot easier for us to do this work long term when we are actually connected and living and breathing what we're doing. So,
Yeah, and Margaret was great because at some point she was like, "You have to go teach men. Go out and teach men to, learn to be better lovers and how to last longer and become multi-orgasmic." And I was like,
mhm.
"All right, I can do that." And since she's part witch, I think she made things happen for me. So
Yeah.
my first group was full.
Yeah.
Wow,
Amazing. Yeah.
nice.
When I first read the Skydancing Tantra teacher, I read it as skydiving Tantra. So I was like, wow, this is new to the show. But can you tell us a little bit about what that is, like Skydancing Tantra? This isn't the first I've even heard of the term.
Mm. Well, skydance is Margot's version of Tantra. So she went to India in the 60s and 70s, studied with Osho, and did a lot of crazy things,
Mhm.
put in a room, had sex with a lot of different people, and
Mhm.
did all these different practices. And so when she came back into Europe, she added those practices she learned with some bioenergetics and somatics and some psychology and created something called Skydancing Tantra. So I think you could say fundamentally it's conscious sexuality.
Hmm.
It's very somatic based. So I'm going to be doing practices that involve movement or sound or breathing
Hmm.
and connecting with a partner in that way with eye gazing, creating a safe, sacred bubble with your partner and
Hmm.
doing some kind of breath exchange. So those are the fundamentals of Skydancing Tantra.
Okay. Fun. Yeah. And I always say this all the time. I'm like, in the world of sex, there's so many different possibilities and avenues and modalities that you can bring into this. And so thanks for, yeah, for teaching us around that and shedding some light on that. This is also another thing that we can look into. And yeah, so a lot of men, right? A lot of men want to be the great lovers, but they feel like they were never really taught how. And I think that just society really screws men in this way because they're basically the light. What society says is, you should just know, right? The man should just know when you get in that first sexual experience, you should just know what to do. And that's not always the case, right? And so, from your perspective, what would you say are the biggest gaps in how men are learning about sex and intimacy?
Well, if you're learning about sex and intimacy through porn, you're already a couple of steps in the wrong direction
Hmm. Hmm.
because there's a lot of things that are challenging about porn. I'm not against porn necessarily, but in terms of having learning things, there's very few scenes in porn that are going to be educational to a man rather than just provide him with some kind of visual stimulation. If you're having sex with your partner and you're calling up visuals from some other incident, maybe if it's porn or some fantasy you're having, you're
Hmm.
actually dissociating yourself from the experience.
Hmm.
So and men generally are, so many of the guys I work with in my coaching practice are dissociated to some degree, or they're just like they're self-proclaimed head cases.
Hmm.
I just get a lot of engineers, a lot of guys who are all day they're busy in their head thinking and strategizing and planning. And they get to the bedroom and they're like, okay, strategizing and planning. What do I do first? And it just that really can fall flat with their partners.
Hmm.
And women listening to this could probably nod their heads like,
Hmm.
yeah, if he's like thinking he has to do step A to B to C with me. I can feel all that. What I really want is my man to be present with me
Hmm.
and just relax and confident
Hmm.
in being with me. And let's see what goes from there. So
Hmm.
that's basically what I train guys to do is to drop into a place of relaxation and from that place feel their own inner confidence coming
Hmm.
forward
Hmm.
and then act from that place rather than some kind of playbook that they have in their head they've either learned from the internet or porn or wherever.
Hmm. Yeah, and what comes up a lot too in my practice, and I primarily do work with women, is the routine behind it. It's like we're doing the same thing every single time, and that's where like okay, point A to B, like I know if I do this, I push this, I touch here. It's the same routine, and it can get boring, right? Like it'll just stale even. Um, and so I think that yeah, if we can help really men and women, all genders, like be more embodied in the experience, that is where the best sex comes from, is when I'm actually in this embodied experience with you, the person or persons that I'm engaging with.
Yeah, I think the things that keep people from doing that, men and women, as you say, some of it is shame. So,
Hmm.
shame, and I was going to say shama, which is shame and trauma, some combination of those two things that affect someone so that they just can't be present. There's a fear of moving into that space of unknown, and it's much safer to be like, okay, I'm going to do my routine. I'm going to check the boxes
Hmm.
and what happens if you let go of that and just let yourself be more spontaneous
Hmm.
and allow sex to be something that evolves and is more improvisational even?
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, another thing that is coming up too is like being embodied, but also being in tune with what your partner is doing or not doing, right? And so being able to notice, is she dissociating or are they dissociating? Are they checked out? Are they not having a good time, really, right? And so I like yeah, I just want to be clear on that. Like embodied does not mean selfish and you're only focusing on you and your experience, right? It's a partnered experience. And I do also follow like my pleasure is my priority, my pleasure is my responsibility. And so I think there's right a layer of that comes into it as well.
I think for guys especially, they're like, oh, if I can just please her, I want to take care of her orgasm. Like, I mean, you'll get guys who are selfish, right? That are just like,
Hmm.
oh, I want to get off,
Hmm.
basically.
Hmm.
And then the next level after that is the guy who's so focused on her that he forgets about himself
Hmm.
and he forgets about his own pleasure and what feels good for him. He's like, if I can just make her have an orgasm, then I'll secure love and I'll get to keep her.
Hmm.
You know, this is kind of the primal thing that's happening there. But he doesn't realize that his own expression of pleasure is what turns her on. Like if
Hmm.
he's a turned on guy and he's experiencing a lot of pleasure, she's enjoying that. And that can be something that becomes now reciprocal and they can feed off each other.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, so one of the things that you talk about is helping men understand this on that physical, mental, and emotional aspects and to again becoming the lovers that they really believe and want to be. Can you walk us through what those layers look like in the work that you do?
Hmm. Well, so at the physical level, men need to learn to manage their arousal levels. I guess you could say it like that. So,
Hmm.
what do I need to do to um, maintain an erection? What do I need to do to last as long as I want to last so I can have mastery over my stamina?
Hmm. Hmm.
So those are practices that you can do at the physical level. So self-pleasuring, a breathing practice that I do. There's a pelvic rocking, there's a
Hmm.
PC pumps, PC squeezes, and that can all come together along with a standing shaking practice that I suggest. And so all these things are designed to remove blocks in the body so you can conduct more energy and have more pleasure. So at the
Hmm.
physical level, that's what I'm working with guys on. The mental, emotional level, that's more challenging, but it's also more important because if guys are fixated or locked into a negative spiral, like, oh, bad things happen, or I'm anticipating bad things happen. How do we manage the psychology and the mental aspect of men who get into patterns that create anxiety in the bedroom?
Hmm.
And because of that anxiety, then that affects the physicality, and then the physicality affects the anxiety. And now all of a sudden we're in the downward spiral, right? So,
Hmm.
how do
Hmm.
we manage it so that we're staying positive or we're working with our mental aspects and our emotional aspects in positive ways so that now we're going up in a positive spiral instead
Hmm.
of down?
Hmm. Yeah, thank you for that. And if we can focus a little bit more on the physical side of it, what do you think is happening physically in the body that men often are misunderstanding for themselves?
Mm, I think some of it is that men are trying to will themselves to get hard or will themselves to stay hard. And
Hmm.
the act of willing or that struggle inside creates tension, and
Hmm.
the tension destroys arousal.
Hmm.
It's like
And performance
now
anxiety.
there's this blend of the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems that has to happen for a man to be at his best as a sexual animal. So
Hmm.
if there's too much sympathetic, which is the fight or flight,
Hmm.
then that's a killer for the guy. If there's too much parasympathetic, it's really hard to get aroused. It's just like, yeah, I think,
All right, I'm so relaxed. Yeah.
I know. So what is that blend and how can we make that happen in the body? How can we train our bodies to become conductors of those two systems and in a positive way? So, oh, I'm a little more in the parasympathetic. Let's charge the body up with some energy. Let's see if that can shift it. I was just on a call the other day with a group of men, and we did a breathing practice to charge the genitals. And the guy was like, I'm starting to get an erection. And I was like, that is so cool. You're my poster boy. I was like, just from the breath, he's getting turned on. So
Yeah.
it was so cool to see that happen.
Yeah, for sure. My cousin and I did a breathwork practice just the other night for our intimacy date, and it was like, yeah, both of us, it was like it wasn't even anything sexual focused, but for both of us, like we were just so charged afterwards. And I like reached over to touch him, and I swear it was like my fingertips were like on fire, like lightning was like jolting through my body. And same, he's like, as soon as you touch me, like I was so hard, and I was like, yeah, like the power of the breath. It's like we're
Yeah.
literally getting high on our own supply over here. It was amazing.
I love that. And that's the key to having men become multi-orgasmic. I mean, after
Mhm.
you learn to manage your arousal levels and you feel like, okay, I can last as long as I want, or I'm really managing my turn on. What's next after that? And that's
Mhm.
where the tantric practices of let's conduct more energy in my body. Let's learn to surrender and let go in ways that I might not think that it's possible for me.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
if you think about for some men, they're like, "What do you mean multi-orgasmic? Do you mean I ejaculate multiple times? I can't do that since I was a teenager." I'm
Yeah.
like, "No, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking
Yeah.
about opening up energy channels in your body, which can sound kind of woo-woo, but
Hmm.
it's just
Here
true
for
that
it. Yeah.
that's what happens." And so once those channels start to open up, then you conduct more energy and you can start having non-ejaculatory, full body,
Hmm.
multiple orgasmic
Hmm.
experiences.
Hmm.
And that's when it gets really good because if you're having that with your partner and they're having the same, all of a sudden it's turning into kind of a magical experience.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm so glad you put voice to that too, because I know that, right, there's men in the world that this has happened where they have that orgasm or they have that feeling that build and that come down of an orgasm experience, but they're not coming. They're like, wait, what just happened? Right? It's like
Yeah.
this mind-blowing effect that happens. And yeah, and then people like us, the educators in the world, are like, yes, like just like celebrating, you're doing it, you're doing it. Yeah.
And the first time it happened to me, again, it was just like, oh my God, what was
Yeah.
that? And I probably spent 10 years trying to figure it out after that. I'm like,
Yeah.
I gotta get back to that. I gotta get back to that.
My
But now
husband,
it's,
like, something really weird happened just now.
yeah, yeah.
Like,
Like, I want that to happen again. So,
yeah,
and
absolutely.
so because I figured out how to do that and then compacted it, now guys are having it much more. It doesn't take them 10 years like it does for
Hmm.
me. It did for me. So,
Yeah. Yeah, which is yeah, what we want. That's my wish for people is that they can be having the best sex of their lives for as long as possible.
yeah.
Um yeah, and then I want to transition. I would really like to talk about the stamina piece. So what are some mental habits that can enhance or influence sexual stamina or pleasure for men?
So one of the first ones is working with healing your shame and trauma, like we talked
Hmm.
about.
Hmm.
So that's some of the pieces are about, okay, where was I wounded? Where, let's say if I have body shame and I'm taking my clothes off and I'm like, oh God, I had this part where I'm not big enough or I'm not getting hard or the shame starts to come in. So what do you tell yourself in that? It's almost like a little cognitive behavioral therapy. You're
Hmm.
doing working
Hmm.
with yourself and you're like, oh, wow. I'm just going to, first of all, I'm aware that that's happening. So there's an awareness that has to happen. And then there's an acknowledgement like, yep, that's happening for me right now, as opposed to pushing the experience away.
Hmm.
And then just even maybe accept it or find a way to acknowledge it to a partner. Like, yeah, believe it or not, I'm having some body shame right now as I'm with you right now. And sometimes just the expression of that,
Yeah.
which feels really vulnerable, and guys are like,
Hmm.
oh, I can't say that. But that's often the key. I mean, I've had experiences myself of not getting hard in a moment, and then even saying to my partner, like, oh wow, here, don't post this on Facebook that the sex guy is having erection problems. And like we had a laugh about it, and a minute later,
Hmm.
the erection comes
Hmm.
back. It's just to
Yeah.
be able to be some kind of have lightness or playfulness around it is really powerful for men.
Hmm. Yeah.
So to convert that shame, those shame feelings into something that's a little different, that's compassionate or curious or
Accepting.
playful.
Yeah.
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 So that's
Absolutely.
kind of the beginning stage of how you work with yourself that when things like that come up.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think that's a great tip on both sides, right? Like because I think that the female listeners here, they're like, well, I'm having like these body things coming up in the bedroom or the shame coming up in the bedroom, and yeah, just what I've said this on the podcast many times, like name it to tame it. And sometimes I think it's like that moment of vulnerability, and when you can share that and take that risk and put yourself out there, and then your partner like shows up on the other end of that, like think about the emotional connection and the physical connection at that point, right? That brings to you both. And I think some oftentimes when we hold that in with ourselves, it's basically saying to our partners, like, I don't trust you with this information. I don't trust you to like know this about me. And so yeah, that's a lot of work when I'm working with couples. That's yeah, vulnerability. I can't stress enough of Brene Brown's work on vulnerability and shame and whatnot. Yeah, we're human. Like we're just here having our human experience.
Yeah, it's so helpful like you said, name it to tame it. It's just
Hmm.
that's the way to go. Is
Yeah.
if you and to be able to feel the feeling that's there as
Hmm.
opposed to pushing it away.
Hmm.
So training men to sustain levels of feeling is another piece as well. So if you can have a feeling come up, realize it's a wave that comes through as opposed to again pushing something away. Like, yep, I'm going to ride this wave of
Hmm.
anger. I'm going to ride the wave of fear. I'm going to ride the wave of, sadness. I'm going to let myself cry and let my heart break open. Like all of
Hmm.
those are key for a man to really become the best lover he can.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, right? Multi-orgasmic lover, right? That phrase itself, I'm sure, sparks a lot of curiosity for people. And you've given us some clarity around like what that actually means. It's not necessarily multi-ejaculation, though that's possible too, but it's really like the embodied, long-lasting pleasure that a person can feel.
And as you become more skillful, so it's an amazing experience as you age. For
Hmm.
instance, like I'm having the best sex of my life in my 60s.
Hmm.
And so, even though I would say I had more ejaculatory power when I was in my 20s,
Hmm.
so as that goes down, the speed of your refractory period and all those things that goes down,
Hmm.
something else is going up, which
Hmm.
is conscious awareness in my body of my
Hmm.
turn on and my ability to conduct energy in my body. So
Yeah.
that becomes an amazing experience for partners, me and
Hmm.
my partners.
Hmm. So often I have had several guests. I've been podcasting now for 5 years, and I had several guests that are in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and many of them have said that same thing. And I think it's also, we hope that especially when you're in this work and you're doing this work, which again many of the guests on are doing this work themselves too, you reach that point where that shame is not feeling so heavy. I don't know necessarily if like shame ever fully goes away. I think like
Right.
once we heal something, the next thing is like, haha, you're ready for this thing now. Like here's your next adventure. But we can learn the tools to manage it better and right and like take those moments of vulnerability even with partners or with self to I like your analogy. You're speaking my language, Jim. Like ride the wave.
Yeah. And for me, when the shame goes from being like front and center, like, okay, it's like loudspeakers blaring at me to this kind of radio hum in the
Hmm.
background, right? It moves to the background. It's like, "Brrr,"
Hmm.
and I notice I'm like, oh yeah, there's a thing back there again. Yeah.
Hmm.
It doesn't go away. I'm like, yeah, but
Yeah.
it's a lot smaller and it just doesn't have the effect that it does because I know that I'm not that.
Hmm.
I'm not that shame boy.
Yeah. Yeah. I also find it really helpful if you can really visualize your shame and so come up like does it have a name? Does it have a color? Like what do you
Yeah.
see? And so yeah, for people it's get out of here, Karen, right? Like Karen, you're not welcome here right now or whatever you want to name the thing. I think that can be helpful and also like a playful approach to it as well.
Sometimes I give it a voice like, "Yeah, you'll never be a good lover," or
Yeah.
kind of make a funny voice, and it just disappears. It's like,
Exactly. Yeah.
okay, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
busted.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, I think like laughter, joy, pleasure, all of that is what is the antidote to shame, right? Like that's what how we cure it, stepping more into that. Okay, so switching gears, I'm curious more on the sky dancing tantra piece of your work. And so I think that tantra is something that can just feel really mysterious or be really misunderstood by people. And so could you explain to us a little bit more, maybe for somebody that is newer into this work, how tantra might show up or how it can even change the intimacy that they're having?
Hmm. Well, let's say that you're used to having kind of more automatic sex, missionary position, or maybe just two positions that you have in the bedroom.
Hmm.
There's not a lot of eye contact. You're kind of searching for your orgasm to get to do the thing you get it. Like maybe if you're a woman, you're rubbing your pubic bone on your partner's pubic bone in order to stimulate your clit,
Hmm.
or there's a certain way you need to move. So there's a focus like, okay, there's these things I have to do as opposed to, okay, what would genuine connection with my partner look like?
Hmm.
What would it be if we have more eye contact? What would it be if we started to breathe together? Okay, let's inhale together and exhale, and we're doing eye gazing together. And this feels uncomfortable or odd, but I'm going to keep doing it because, there it is. That feels good. Oh, and now, so maybe you could invert your breath. So you're breathing up into your heart region and you're giving to your partner from your heart. And then they're breathing in what you're giving them from your heart and down to their genitals. And then they're giving to you. So there's a kind of circuit
Hmm.
that's created in the breath, using the breath and
Hmm.
visualization. And this way you're starting to feel more. deeply connected to your partner, and it's not about trying to search for this orgasm, this ejaculatory or this burst of orgasm. It's
Hmm.
more about what happens when we're both present with each other and we let a spontaneous experience happen between us.
Hmm.
So there's principles of skydancing tantra, like I mentioned, movement and breath and sound, and you can use all these things. You can create a sacred space, a bubble around your practice together, and do honoring of each other's hearts. You do put on my hand on your heart and honor your heart, or I honor your genitals or your third eye. So
Hmm.
there's different rituals to do, but for me, when I think about that, I don't do that when I make love anymore. It's not like, okay, we're going to create a sacred bubble. I'm just focused on being present with my partner and seeing what emerges. I keep saying that over and over, but that
Hmm.
seems to me to be the key. It's
Hmm.
not about necessarily rituals that you do, although they can be beautiful and help you connect. And that's the point, is like, what things can we do that helps us connect more deeply?
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. And I would love to, I'm not sure if you get to hear much from the partners, but since there are many listeners of the show that are women, and a lot of listeners too are navigating intimacy in long-term relationships, I'm curious about your perspective on this. And so what does it look like when a man becomes more embodied and skillful in his sexuality within that relationship? What do the partners start to notice in this?
It depends on the partner's level of consciousness, we could say.
Hmm. Hmm.
So if a man is doing this good work and he comes to his partner with it, if she's not also doing good work, she could feel really threatened by it and be like, oh,
Hmm.
wait, whoa, 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 whoa. I like the lights off and to be have some clothes on and only do it at this certain time when the kids are going, like there's
Hmm.
her own fear will start to
Rigidness, yeah,
will
yeah.
start to come up. But other women will be like, woohoo, yay, I can't, I'm so excited now. You're
Hmm.
pushing the edge for me. This is great. So we're
Hmm.
challenging each other. And so she could be very thrilled by this. So it depends on where she's at exactly.
Hmm.
And I see both of those in my practice.
Hmm.
When I work with guys, they're like, she's not gonna go with this. She's not gonna say yes to the things that I'm doing. I'm like, she should just try it. You never know. So
Hmm.
kind of scoot him in that direction and see.
Yeah.
And other times the guy will be like, hey, can you talk to my wife? Because, I think she could tell you things about me without me being there that would be really helpful for the process that we're working on.
Hmm.
So when I talk to her, sure enough, and when she's on board, then that's when
Yeah.
the change really starts to happen, is when the woman is on board and she's like, all right, my man's doing the work. Let's go
Hmm.
for it.
Hmm.
And so things skyrocket when that happens.
Yeah. Yeah. Any advice for women listening on how can she be more
Hmm.
encouraging or more supportive in this way for a man that might be stepping into this work?
I have a whole article on how to talk to your man about sex.
Mm, perfect.
So if you go to awakenmasculine.com, my website, I'm trying to remember the name of it, but it's all about this is a woman's guide to talking to your man about sex. And it's like choosing the right time to do that,
Hmm.
not, and then let him know, this is going to be light and easy. It's not going to be, it's not all serious. It's not like doom and gloom. Uh, and then talk about what's going really well and what you really like about it. It's
Hmm.
like almost like
A
a
little sandwich.
performance review at work, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, and then here's the things that you'd really like to change, and you really have to manage your own critical nature because I would say that the number one killer for men in the bedroom is the woman's criticism.
Hmm.
And I either get guys who say, wow, the thing that she said 3 years ago is still sticking with me. And it's like, gnaws at me that she said that and I
Hmm.
can't stop thinking about it.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, how to present material, not from your critical nature, but from one that's more encouraging or helpful
Yeah.
for a man.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, we'll link that website in the show notes so people can go and find that. And yeah, thank you.
Mm.
And before we wrap, I would love to just have something practical for listeners. So if somebody's listening to this, what is one thing that they could do now to shift into this more embodied experience?
Mm. I would say either for men or women, the next time you're intimate with a partner, focus on a sensate practice. So
Hmm.
sexologists would talk to you about this too,
Hmm.
but like what does it feel like to really touch her or him? Um, and what's the contact between their body and your fingertips? And can you feel the pleasure in yourself with that touch rather than, am I touching them? Am I giving them pleasure? Am I giving them pleasure? What's the actual physical sensation of uh, pleasure in your fingertips or in your arm or whatever is touching anything? It
Hmm.
doesn't have to be your fingertips. But how can I slow things down so that I can feel things more and enjoy the pleasure that's inherent in the touching itself?
Hmm.
So I would just say, just do that and
Yeah.
start there and see if you can't magnify your own experience of pleasure in an intimate situation.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, and if I may, I will plug. I have a podcast on Sensate Focus from years ago, but for people listening, if you have curiosity in this, you can go back and search that website. And another thing that was coming up was the 3 minute game, being able to do that exchange back and forth of touch and consent and exploration and whatnot. And so we have an episode on that as well. I've talked about 3 minute game often on the show. It's one of my favorite things for partnership. But yeah, thank you so much. And yeah, just in the work that you're doing now, what are you most curious or excited about right now in the work that you're
Hmm.
doing?
Most excited. I'm really here more and more. I'm realizing to help people realize, to understand that as you age, you can have better sex. I think
Hmm.
that's kind of the thing that I'm most excited about right now. It's just
Hmm.
to shift the mindset of, because it's happened to me. I felt like, oh, I hit a certain age. I'm like, yep, okay, it's probably all downhill from here. And some resignation almost like, yeah, okay, I should just expect it's going to get worse. It's not true.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm helping people not just physically, like, okay, let's do practices, or have you got your testosterone checked, or like doing some of the physical stuff that
Hmm.
needs to happen. But also like, let's change the mindset around this about this is, I'm on the downslope and this is all only getting worse from here out.
Hmm.
It's like, no, not true.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm a living example of that, and you can be too. So I'm kind
Hmm.
of want to like shake people, be like, you can do this.
Yeah, I have a colleague of mine. She works a lot with midlife women and she calls it midlife magic, right? Like that perimenopause,
Yes.
like menopausal time. And my
Yes.
my wish for people is that it we don't have to reach that tipping point in life to where things start to get bad or you start to feel that decline for that to be the wake up. And I think so much of this is also just expanding your lens of what is sex and what is intimacy. It's not just P and V, right? And so I think that can help people gain this consciousness even earlier in life, so that when, yeah, your 50s and your physical decline or things happen or your cognitive decline even starts to happen in later age, like you're ready, you're prepared, you're like, oh yeah, I'm like, I already have all these tools, right? Like bring it on.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. I love that idea of starting early
Mhm.
and that as a preparation for when you get to be an old guy like me.
Not old. Age is just a number. Where can listeners go if they want to learn more about your work or even become a person in your program?
Awakenedmasculine.com is
Okay.
my website. And for guys, I have a free training available there. It's called 33 Ways to Touch Her. And
Hmm.
it's me with four different models.
Hmm.
And I just talk about these different ways to touch a woman. So
Okay.
if you want some education, it's a free training at my
Hmm.
website, awakenedmasculine.com. And I'm
Hmm.
also accepting clients for one-on-one coaching for
Okay.
men.
Perfect. And you said you're in Mass, but you work virtually anywhere in
Yeah.
anybody in the world?
I have
Perfect.
clients all over the world. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you so much for coming on the show today and sharing all of your insights. I really love this conversation and really hope that this episode helps people deepen their connection both with themselves and with their partners.
Yeah, me too. Thanks for inviting me, Rachel.
Absolutely.